The other group, they come in, the youngest group, I think. Oh, the ladies are still discussing, I think. Yeah, we started. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. So inshallah, let's begin with the discussions, comments, questions and answers. You all had these 3 questions and I'm sure you tried your level best to look at those questions. So this is the time to present what you feel, and then we will ask you. And to all of you, you are free at any point in time to rebuttal or to ask or to interrogate or to comment, so that we are able to go out with something concrete or something at least to think about. Now, I think the ladies are ready to start, or you want the gents to start? Okay. She said if the gents can start, it will be good for her. At least for the first time, the ladies are giving you that opportunity. Okay, under 16, if you all can come here, it's good because you are under 16. So it's okay. Come forward. Oh, they are under 14. Yeah, all the group, all of you come. It's good. Let's have all of you here. So who is going to speak? Who is going to? So who is going to hold for? Okay. And okay. Now let's hear from there. Okay.
So for the first question, what do you define as Western ideology? We wrote down a few words in our over here on our paper. So we wrote down football, sport, music,
MashaAllah.
dancing, following trends, and there's an example for that: McDonald's and smoking, accepting religions, promoting celebrities' lifestyle. And then our second question, what we put for the answer was how we do things in our community, and different lifestyle, football tournaments, English recitations,
English reciting is in trouble.
swearing, bad language because of schools, and arguing and fighting, disconnecting with the Masjid, comparing religion and confronting to the West, social media. Okay.
Okay, now let's go to the last one. What are the solutions?
Some of the solutions for Western ideology in our community are visiting your home country more often so you can be more connected with your culture. You can refer to Islamic books. You can ask advice from religious scholars in your country because they will have gone through some of the same problems that you have. And you can have a good circle of friends so they won't influence you to swear or smoke or anything like that.
Thank you. MashaAllah. Salawat for the boys. Salawat. Thank you so much. Mohammed. From the ladies.
For the first question, what we defined as Western ideology lots of these points we had raised before. That is an ideology which has no barriers and freedom, with freedom of values and sometimes no values at all. It's an individual based society where people are thinking of themselves, and the introduction of globalization um, uh, uh, results in has resulted in not a particularly a Western or an Eastern ideology. It's ideology all over the world. We discussed how we can see this in our communities, and sadly within our communities sometimes people prioritize themselves as opposed to Islam, even within the community, as an egocentric process. Sometimes there can be materialism and we can be judgmental because Islam is quite prescriptive. It's easy to sit yourself in judgment on things. And even sometimes within the community, in the way that we change and what we learn, our ideas may change according to what is going around us socially, as opposed to being promoted by religious values. There is a conflict between culture and religion. And we should address some of these things. Some of the solutions is by emphasizing tarbiyah in Islam. Also, we should know more to answer the questions of our children, and education of ourselves is very important, so that we can promote ourselves to the wider community as role models as well as our own community. We should promote a positive image of Islam, promoting that we do whatever we do for the love of Allah, not for the wrath of Allah, and show our faith by our good akhlaq to everyone, and spread the messages of Islam to everyone.
MashaAllah. Very good. Now, next group from the gents. Under 17, above. Oh, it's like you have 2 pages. Or...
I think the idea, in regards to the first question, we discussed quite a lot at the introduction as well, and it's quite similar to ours as well, where Western ideology means having freedom, and what if religion is different to ideology, if is ideology faith-based, does akhlaq comes under ideology as well. And to summarize all of it, I'll just mention a few points, and to start with, akhlaq is a universal principle where every ideology, every culture, every religion have it. It's just how we portray it. There are areas we will all come together, but we all have our unique ways of practicing things as well. And as one of the hadiths you mentioned, that you cannot be good in anything if your etiquettes and ethics are not good. And in order to solve these issues, or some solutions, some of these suggestions were that we should be knowing our faith properly, and not knowing but actually practicing, drawing a line, and also educating other people around us. And once you are a good role model at your workplace, as a parent, as a kid in your school, university, people will automatically feel there are differences and they should be respecting it. One of the very important point mentioned by one of the brother was that intellectual identity and cultural identity were actually Islamic principles, or Islamic identity. The intellectual and the cultural one is that it used to be Muslims' identity before, in olden days, where Muslims used to have hold.
Muslim.
And now we have lost it to West.
They were sleeping, that's why Muslims were sleeping, isn't it?
So, yeah, that's about it.
I don't know. We'll discuss it later. Okay. So let's hear from the ladies.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
We said that Western ideology is a balance between the culture of Western countries, for example, the USA and the UK, and also a balance between the way that we live. And we also talked about the need to follow other people, for example, celebrities and trends on social media. Yeah.
Yeah.
For the second question, we questioned about how we raise children because in Islam it says a woman's priority is to raise her kids. She does not have to work, but in a Western society, it's common for women and men to both go to work. So, is it necessary for women to work, and why they should? And in our communities, you can see that a lot of women they do go to work. So, is it a way like is it like yeah like is it should they need to work? Is it like a barrier between their upbringing of their children? Also, by when other people question about why people why we wear a hijab, like we're not educated enough to answer their questions, because when you tell them, when they ask you, oh, were you forced to wear it, you can't really say you weren't, because you have to wear it in Islam, otherwise there are consequences. So you don't really know how to answer their questions. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we have one last group, huh? No, from the ladies here. Okay, the third question. What are the solutions? Yeah.
So the main solution is to understand the reasons behind certain rules that they argue against. For example, hijab. So why do we not allow mixed gatherings? Why do we have to wear like hijabi clothing?
Okay.
Just understand the reason behind it and the concept of like why we do it, basically, and be confident in that, so that even if we're outnumbered, we're sure enough that we are correct, so we can.
Excellent. Let's go to the last group, then we can enter into our discussions. Yeah. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Well, initially, our definition was that Western ideology. We initially said that there's a difference between Western ideology and Western principles, because there are some things to them, like you mentioned earlier, the handshaking. To them, it's just a norm, but then to us, it's an ideology. However, it was raised that a principle roots from an ideology, so technically it is an ideology to them. So then it becomes a practice roots from an ideology, so that it becomes a matter of what we can accept and what we see as an ideology. And then for the second question, how is it seen in our communities? We technically asked what Western ideologies we struggle with personally, and we agreed modesty was one of them, because in our society, we tend to think of modesty towards our surrounding, not more in a general point of view, not more of an Islamic point of view. It's, for example, I'm from Nigeria, and in Nigeria there are some things I'd wear over there that when I wear them here, it's like not Muslim enough, and then it becomes, oh, does culture also influence religion? And if so, what is Western ideology? Because then it relates to surrounding, not just the world overall. And then for the third question, we think there needs to be more conversation around Islam, the growth that the surroundings that we're in, the problems that we're facing. We need to have more, because it's so broad, we need to also start looking at it in a broader point of view than just, oh, we're only focusing on this part or that part, because it can't be generalized.
And the last one, what are the solutions?
To have more topics, more conversations.
More discussions.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's get into the discussion. So this last part of the program is to make it more interactive between myself and yourselves. We need to ask every difficult question we want to ask, and we need to be free and open to discuss it. So, we are discussing Islamic ideology, Western ideology. There are two schools of thought here, from what I could gather. One school of thought says there is no difference between Western ideology and Islamic ideology. It's one thing and the same. That's one school of thought. The other school of thought says no. We have what is called Islamic ideology. In fact, there are three schools of thought here. So the second one is we have Islamic ideology and you have Western ideology. And the third school of thought says no. There are ideologies that Islam and the West share in common, and there are ideologies that they differ. Now, I want us to discuss this. I'm not only going to do the talk. Let's all do the talk. We'll guide the talk, inshallah. And I want maximum participation from all of us. Do we think Islam and its ideology is different from the West and its ideology? Or do you think they are one thing at the same time? Or there are ideologies that Islam and West share in common, and there are ideologies that they don't share in common. And here, I don't want you to just tell me they share in common, you keep quiet. Discuss, talk. Bring what is in you. You've got that potential, you've got those substances in you, and that is why we are here. We discuss. The more you talk, the more we all learn, and the more you learn. So who want to start? Yeah? Which one of the schools of thought you want to pick up and you stand for?
The last one.
The last one. What is the last one?
I think the Western ideology and the Islamic ideology are alike on some basis, but they also differ on other things.
So can you expound a little bit and give some examples? And if anyone disagrees after her, pick it up.
I think Western culture has taken a lot of good from the Islamic teachings.
Where did you get that from?
You can see like a lot of things that Islam teaches us. Many times we fail to practice, but the Western people read more of our books, they say, than we do, and then they take a lot of benefit out of it.
So how do you get to this conclusion that they took it from Islam?
So they say. And also, I think they've learned a lot because a lot of the Western scholars and stuff, they refer to Islamic, like Iranian and like Islamic scholars and like people who have invented things from the past, and they always refer back to them. You know, they say the Islam in this
example.
Islam's name.
Can you give an example?
I'm really bad with names.
Okay.
But I have heard a lot, and I think also have read. I just can't recall the name.
Okay.
It's like an on-the-spot question, so I've kind of lost my word now.
So can you give an example of an ideology that the West and Islam share in common? Then we can move forward.
So, for example, Islam really respects women. Okay, and it's
Who said that?
It's all about.
Ask the women
It's very
there.
clear. For instance, hijab. Okay, if you understand hijab correctly, and you
Is
understand,
that respect for women?
of course it is.
How?
In every single
Guys,
way.
I need us to discuss this thing. We should not just be ticking the boxes. This is a very important discussion. She's mentioning some very strong points, and I need to get the feeling of what you guys think. Then I should be able to guide also from my own personal understanding. So she's saying that one ideology that Islam and West share in common is the respect for women. And her example of respect for women is hijab. So I'm asking her, how does hijab become respect for women? Guys, whoever wants to speak should speak. We should not be like we're in the cemetery. We are not in the cemetery. Cemetery is quiet and la ilaha illallah. This, we have to discuss this, make it hot. Yes.
No, I'm just focusing on what she said.
Okay.
I think what she's trying to explain. She's trying to give on how could have. I think I agree with the third one where Islamic ideology and Western ideology can go hand in hand sometimes. but then Western ideology tends to flip flop sometimes. So, for example, in the 80s and 90s, it was seen as the most respectable thing for a lady to be covered virtually from head to toe, but not anymore in Western ideology, that is. Again, in Western ideology, small things like women got married until they just woke up one day and decided they didn't think that was okay. And so these are the small things that are both in Western ideology and in Islamic ideology that are things that make a lot of sense. And sometimes Western ideology would just and like change that around, which is where the problem tends to start from. But in terms of, again, Western ideology and Islamic ideology coming hand in hand, the good thing is, alhamdulillah, like any ideology that the Westerners will come up with are mostly things that the Quran discusses anyway. So even if it's
Like,
something like one of the things that we discussed, for example, in our group, when we said, which ideology do you struggle with the most in the West? And then someone said LGBTQ, so being gay and things like that, basically, which is an ideology that is very like on top of the topic right now in Western world. So these are things that, say, for example, Islam has already discussed beforehand, knowing most likely that this is going to become an issue at some point in time. So these are the small differences you find between religion and Islamic ideology.
okay, she mentioned modesty. Now, I need examples of ideologies that we have in the West and deeply enshrined within Islamic teaching. So she mentioned modesty, but I need very appealing example. Anyone? Okay, so she is talking of democracy. Democracy, no doubt, is a very strong Western ideology. Question: do we have democracy in Islam or not? And if we have, is it the same like what we have in the West? I need discussion. Because I also strong believe that, look, democracy is something that we can discuss more.
If I believe democracy means to have everybody has the right to vote or to have an opinion, I believe Islam does not have democracy because it's all man-made. I mean, it powers the man over the woman. Women have no say. No matter what you say, the women are
Who has more say?
Men have more say
than women.
Yes, in every sense. Men
How?
are allowed to be leaders in every way. Women are not. So Islam does not. I think in those terms, Islam does not have democracy. Also, just to point out, just to go back a bit, the women do believe that hijab, they've been talking about hijab for all this time. I think they've got the idea wrong. That hijab does not mean full covering of the head to toe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Islam has anything to do with hijab, full covering from head to toe.
What does Islam say?
If the women are thinking head to toe is hijab, I think they have been misguided. They need to.
So what is hijab in Islam?
If I'm not mistaken, I stand to be corrected, but does not Islam say hijab comes from both places for the men and the women? Why is it that we always? Why is it? Hijab,
where do you get that from?
Hijab has become. If I stand to be corrected, if it is,
I'll correct.
That hijab is something that comes from both sides. The men have a hijab and the women have.
That I agree.
Well and good.
But what is women's hijab? What is meant? That is the point.
The word hijab has become.
So everybody listen. We need to discuss this.
So head to toe covering does not. I mean, why is hijab the word? Everybody here who is here.
So what is women's hijab?
Is thinking head to toe.
What is women's hijab?
Where is the men's hijab? Somebody explain that.
So tell me the women's hijab. Then we can move forward.
If I ask you about hijab, if the word hijab all this time has been mentioned, what have you been thinking? Yes. Oh yeah. No. I'm not. As I said, I am here to stand. I stand
lovely.
To be
he said he stand to be corrected.
At least I mentioned here that they heard, all this time you heard the word hijab.
Yeah. So allow him to
What
finish,
did
then you can
think?
talk. Yeah. No. You finish and then he can talk. Okay. Yeah, women, this is your issue, man. And
me as well as many brothers here want to be educated. And since you've been so passionate to mention hijab, we would love to know what's your concept of hijab for men.
Yeah, I will give guidelines on this, inshallah. Okay, so now the point is here. He's saying that when you talk of hijab, it's not about your description, the way you described. Like you have to, what will be your response to this? Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
I
good.
think a lot of us are definitely aware that the hijab does not only mean covering head to toe. There's so many different aspects of hijab.
Okay.
And I think we definitely are aware that there's hijab for women and there's hijab for men.
Yeah.
But where the problem tends to come for women, and the reason why we tend to speak about it a lot, is because of the focus on women's physical hijab and not necessarily on men's physical hijab or any hijab at all. And also the fact that women's physical hijab is seen more directly and more evidently than men's hijab. So with the example you were given, like, you could get on a train right now and you won't even know if a man is a Muslim or a Christian. But for women, it's impossible.
True.
It's, and so we're talking about how it's almost like for lack of a better word, almost like the burden is on us for us to carry the hijab, for example.
Yeah, very good. So, or you want to add something? Anyone wants to add before I speak? Yeah, good points.
Okay, so hello? Yeah. I would definitely say...
Guys, do we close or you are enjoying the discussion? Huh? Do we close? No, we can't close. We have to have a joke here.
Okay, I completely disagree that Islam doesn't give rights to women. Hello? I think Islam does empower women a lot. Like I said previously, I was talking about it's a huge respect and empowerment for the women. Really, you view it, and of course, your situation and circumstances also affect it. Yes, but it is a respect. And someone mentioned that women are not allowed to be leaders, but then what about Bibi Zainab? What about Bibi Fatima? A lot of women out there are definitely leaders in a lot of fields. And Islam has never stopped women from being leaders. If you were speaking about imamat and being a prophet, yes, but it's like a huge responsibility that has fallen upon the men's shoulders, So I guess Allah has not stopped women from being leaders. It's just a different form. It's not about, women and men are equal, but we're not identical. That's the difference.
Okay. Any other response? Okay.
Again, just as a footnote, I think it's important at this point to distinguish the difference between a concept and practice.
Okay.
A concept is where you understand and subscribe to it and you know the actual rationale behind it, etc., etc. There may well be a difference in practice amongst different people of different sects and whatnot, but that doesn't mean if one is not doing it the right way according to you, it doesn't negate the actual concept. So if you're looking at hijab, for example, which seems to be the flavor of the
discussion
at the moment, if you subscribe to the theory of hijab, knowing that it is something to do with modesty and protecting your modesty, etc., etc., and if you then have one group who practice it by having a piece of cloth from head to toe, and you have someone else who is doing it a slightly different way, it doesn't remove the fact that the subscription itself is actually good and valid. So you have you have that part where it's totally different from the practice. And I think the more we talk about having them mixed up, it will sort of dilute the concept. So
okay, thank you. So for the sake of moving forward, let's look at the hijab first, and then we can move forward to the second question. You see, Islamic concept of hijab is a very broad concept. And as our sister mentioned earlier on, we have different forms of hijab. Yes, I do agree with you on these points, that we always focus more on women's hijab rather than emphasizing on the importance of men's hijab. So let's look at it. You've got physical hijab and you've got spiritual hijab, if you like. What is physical hijab? It's a dress code. Men have their physical hijab and women have their physical hijab. Question. What is men's physical hijab? And what is women's physical hijab? Who knows men's physical hijab? I'm asking the men now. This is Quran direct. We're not going anywhere. Quran. No guessing. What is men's hijab? Yeah, I'm talking of now clothes. Now, lower your gaze, maybe I will put it in a spiritual one, and that is also for women to do that, you know. I'm talking of the dress code. Yeah. Yeah. Take the mic.
From your navel to knee.
Yeah.
So the covering of that.
Where do you get that from?
That's my understanding, so it may be wrong.
Okay. Any other understanding of how men should dress in Islam? Because Islam has a dress code for men and it has dress code for women. Color is a separate discussion, but there is a dress code. It's like when you are working for a certain company, they will prescribe a dress code. And if you do not comply with that, you may be expelled from the job. So definitely, Allah in Quran talks about men and women when it comes to hijab. He said, وَكُلِّ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُدُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُمْ ذَلِكَ أَزْكَى لَهُمْ. So tell the believing men, يَغُدُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ. So that's the first one he started. Lower your gaze. That's spiritual. They must lower their gaze. Then Allah said, وَيَحْفَظْنَ فُرُوجَهُمْ. And they should protect their privacy. So this privacy, what is men's privacy? Then we go to the traditions of the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt, where you have to cover from here to down there. Then the ayah comes with, so if you look at Quran 33 verse 59, it talks about this hijab and it talks about women's hijab. Allah begin by addressing Prophet Muhammad. Say, "O prophets, O the messenger, tell your women, وَنِسَاءِ الْمُؤْمِنَاتِ, and believing women, يُدِنِينَ عَلَيْهِنَّ مِنْ جَلَابِيبِهِنَّ." They should wear jalabib. Allah is the word jalabib. Jalabib means jalabia. Jalabia meaning something long. So that's Quran 33 verse 59. What I believe is the locus of contention is what? Are we to wear black? Or are we to wear orange? Or are we to wear white? And there's another ayah you know very well, up to your bosoms. I'm sure you know that ayah of Quran. So therefore, the concept of hijab is there in Islam. Spiritual hijab and physical hijab. And today, because we don't emphasize more on men's hijab, that's why you find some, when they pray, they don't wear proper belts, excuse my word, and the one behind them is just making Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil throughout the salat. Throughout the salat. Because we just focusing only on women. Islam emphasizes on men's hijab too. And I think it's something that we need to really take it on. And I like the idea also, the concept and the practice. We need to be able to differentiate between the two. Now, the most important question, which I do not believe you've answered it, all of you, which I still need more answers. Share with me more ideologies that Islam and West share in common. So first, democracy. Democracy, our brother is saying no. In Islam, I don't believe and I don't think we have democracy. Because it's male dominated. What do you say about this? Do you agree, guys? That Islam is male-centered? Okay, we give them mic. Now the ladies are going to give them mic. Is it a male-dominated religion, or women are allowed to breathe a little bit? Yeah.
I think Islam itself, its principles and values, it doesn't mean to be male dominated, but I think the application of it within the people, the way we apply it in our communities, very much is. Also, maybe going back to the question about leadership and imamat and prophethood, I think for the social and historical context in which Islam was revealed, it was very much necessary for the leaders to be men at that time. I guess my question now would be, is it okay for us to apply it and have female, leadership? So maybe looking at
leadership like?
Well, I don't.
Oh, chair.
If you're looking at leaders of prayers, or if you're looking at leaders in fiqh or mujtahidas, which there are many that exist, but how comes they are not those that you can do taqleed of? So a lot of questions are now arising as to equaling out those whole platforms. And I understand that male and female are different. We have different roles, different responsibilities, but I also feel that our capacities are not limited, and Islam never limits that. I think it's the application and man's understanding of that and the fear of boundaries. So it's just about
yeah. Someone wants to add something?
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
In the knowledge and the wisdom of Allah, knowing that Imam over time was going to appear at the worst of times in humanity, did he not have a knowledge, for example, to have the 12th Imam as the female Imam, if that's where society is going?
Okay, so I will bring all this together to answer. Anyone wants to say something? So you see, your question, this is what they discuss in the principles of jurisprudence. Now, I'll give you an example. Say you want to establish an educational institution for yourself or for your community. You conduct your feasibility studies or whatever. Do you build the institution based on the number of students you have currently, or no? You will maybe project for the next 20, 30, 40 years. This area is going, or you build. Obviously, you will look at it for 20, 30 years to come. So they say this is what they call Qadiyya Haqiqiyya. Allah's creation is in that way, whereby Allah will not just create for Adam and Hawa who were there. Allah knew up until the last man on the earth what will happen. So he knew everything. But the most important question is it really male dominated? I said no. Islam as Islam, no. But levels of implementation, we made it to look like that. Your point is really very valid point, and I totally agree with you. I couldn't agree more than this. Islam as Islam is not. Seriously. But our communities, our homes, our marriages, the way we go about them look like that's what Islam says. And which is sometimes worrying. But if you go back to the teachings of Islam, I will say, in fact, women have more power than men. If you go deep into the system that Islam established. Seriously. If you take it one after the other. So number one, our brother gave a very excellent example. I don't know whether you mentioned that, but I think inheritance. In inheritance, we said a boy take 2 and a girl take 1. Meaning she takes half of why? Why? This is very valid question, and this really need one proper session for us to discuss. But I will give you some ideas. Why?
Okay, so we spoke about this actually in the discussion, and obviously it's because it's a man's Islamic duty to take care of his family.
But today you working is working.
I know, but still Islamically, it's a man's duty to take care of his family financially, which is why the rule is set up that a man gets 2 portions of what a woman gets. But then we also, when we were discussing, we were like, arguably, actually, as a woman, you could be getting So a portion from what your husband will give you, and also a portion from what your family will give you, so that actually equals out to what a man would get, or maybe in some cases even more than a man would get.
Yeah. So this is good. Even if you go deeper into the concept of inheritance in Islam, if I will encourage you, if you can read more on this, it's not always the case that men take two. We have instances where women take more than man. But what we know is that one only, and men are happy to preach that on the member and leave the rest. But otherwise, really, if you go into Islamic law of inheritance, there are instances, and scholars wrote a lot about this, where a woman, like you gave an example, of course, woman, she can take from her husband, she can take a bit from her son, she can take a bit also from her father. Sometimes if you bring all together, she gets more. But there are instances where, say for instance, father left this world and he left behind son and a daughter. This is example. Obviously, primary teaching comes first and says the son takes two, the daughter takes one, isn't it? So they are alive and they are preparing to inherit whatever the father leaves behind. And this boy, he has daughters. And this girl has son. For whatever reason, the boy dies. Islam will not say the daughters will take that. They will still take that two portion. So it's not just about female. It's the situation. But the unfortunate part we have today, unfortunately, men are not responsible, some men. I mean, I know of men who demand from their women to bring that money home. And that makes it very difficult. So otherwise, when you go to the law of inheritance in Islam, it's very clear when it comes to that. But our communities, we have challenges when it comes to this. Now your point is, Imam. Salah, Maulana lead Salah. MashaAllah, maybe we need to get a lady Imam. It will not be nice if you study it properly. That's why Islam says lady can lead ladies. That there is nothing wrong with that in Islam. For women to become president, we don't have teachings in Islam that says it's haram. So long as Islamic boundaries and etiquette are taken care of, fine. There is nothing wrong with that, really. Yes, if you talk of marja'iyat, for instance, that's another topic of discussion. You talk of marja'iyat. Yes, we have women mujtahidat. We have them. And they are not obliged to make taqlid of anyone. But then the point, which is a very important point you raise, can men and other women make taqlid of woman or not? Islam comes in and says no. So the question is why? Because you may find a woman who is unbelievably strong there. And alhamdulillah, women by nature, they are more stronger than men in terms of IQ. Women are very smart. But here is very clear in our books. So the first response is that if there was a woman to become a leader in terms of like Imam and Nubuwa, Fatima to Zahra could have been the first one. Because I believe her IQ was also very powerful IQ. But all these things, Islam looked at it from the nature of woman and the nature of man. We all have our needs. We all have our differences. And definitely Islam is totally against the idea that men are superior over women. We don't have that in Islam. If for a second a Muslim man thinks that he's superior over his wife, then you have not understood the teachings of Islam. You've got your rights, he has his right. You've got your responsibilities, he has responsibilities. And Islam doesn't stop you to learn whatever you are learning so long as it's good to the highest of the highest level. Yeah.
So, based on that, do you agree that it is okay for us to reject a marriage proposal if a man believes that he is higher than a woman and he refuses to change that belief?
Yeah, I will not say reject it. But I will say communicate, dialogue. Because some men, not all, there are some excellent men out there, by the way. Some men, and of course there are excellent women and there are also other side, But some men may be doing that not because they want to do that. It's because they were raised like that. They were brought up that way. So a lot of awareness need to be created within our communities for people to understand. Is this hand washing the other one? That's why Islam says when you are married, you and your wife are one single existence. You are not two anymore. Meaning you have your responsibilities. The husband has this. But this thing of mastership and the slave, it doesn't work out. It doesn't work out. Yes, there must be a leader in everything. You can decide to say, look, you're going to be a leader in this department. I'm going to be a leader in this department. Because when you have a movement, you must have a leader. So therefore, I wouldn't say reject it. I will say give it the benefit of doubt, sit, dialogue, discuss. And inshallah, through discussion, it will be clear to you whether the guy is just doing it deliberately or no. It's just out of ignorance and there is no knowledge about that. So therefore, what I'm trying to say is in Islam, we don't have it. So therefore, democracy. Do you think there is democracy in Islam? I'm trying to get that from you guys. Because he mentioned, West we have democracy. Vote, free, elect. Do we have that in Islam? Guys, you are Muslims, man. Tell me. We don't have, eh?
It does not have the same value as the witness statement of men.
So we have about 10 minutes to go, eh?
And I do not think
or
that
five,
democracy
yeah.
is necessarily.
We've not done much, man. Yeah.
Had referendum here, for example, and the country is in a mess. So it doesn't mean that democracy is necessarily a good thing when everyone, regardless of their level of knowledge, has the same value and power.
Yeah. So let him add something, then I can allow you to ask me questions because of time. No doubt, democracy is a very strong Western ideology, which all of us are benefiting from, whether we like it or not. We all enjoying it, isn't it? When you come to Islam, to certain level, we have democracy in Islam. But it's not like the way it has been practiced or implemented in the West. So I'm going to give you an example. I want you, if you go back home, check this ayah. Quran 42 verse 38. 42 verse 42 verse 38. There is a concept of democracy. Democracy meaning shura. Allow people their opinion to be heard. So Allah said, "Wa amruhum shura bainahum." Believers, their affairs is based on consultation between them. They consult, you bring your. And then Imam Ali says, 2 heads. We have this saying also, 2 heads are better than 1. Imam Ali mentioned also in one of his traditions. We come together, collectively we discuss. Where does democracy come in Islam? It comes where there is no clear verdict from Allah and His Messenger and to us and Ahl al-Bayt. So when there is a clear message, no democracy. I give a typical example. This year Ramadan is going to be very hot. Can we decide not to fast this Ramadan and then wait a month after? No democracy there. You can't decide. Just example. But we want to elect the chairman of our community. Do you want a lady or a gentleman? We have to decide what we want. Islam said you guys decide how you deem it fit for your needs. And if I may look at other examples, for instance, marriage. Islam says, look, it has to be between male and female. But where you do it is up to you. It's your democracy. You want to do it in the mosque, do it in the mosque. You want to do it in the mamba. You want to do it in the house. You decide wherever you want to go. So Islam first look at the root of it and give you a verdict. That's why you find our prophet, how many times he would sit and consult his companions. Prophet used to do that. Even during some of the battles, prophet wouldn't take decision. Although Allah would reveal to prophet, but he would sit with his companions. Typical example, Battle of Khandaq. Salman al-Farisi became Salman al-Farisi. One of the reason is not only, but one of the reasons is Battle of Khandaq. Because he gave the suggestion of building the trench, digging the trench. Rasulullah consulted them. So there is democracy, but not like the way we have it in the West, whereby you go to parliament. Once it is discussed and it is agreed by people, sorted, done, you can't change it. Unless if the same people come discussed and they take forward. But one really thing I want to tell you, brothers and sisters, I know we have not exhausted this to the way I wanted us to exhaust, because there are so many things in this discussion. And I think next time we need to continue with this discussion. Brothers and sisters, we are living in the West. And this is advice from me to you. And I'm not giving you this advice from my own whims. I'm giving you this advice based on the understanding of Islam and the teachings of Ahlul Bayt and our Maraji. We are living here in the West. Not everything is bad here. There are so many uncountable good things. And I know why I'm saying this. I'm building a case here. There are so many uncountable blessings here which you cannot find in Islamic countries. One of them, freedom of practice. We may disagree with some of their ideologies, but look at the positive side. It will overpower the negative sides. We are free to come here and make matter and have this kind of discussion. There are Muslim countries you can't even have this kind of discussions, which is not a big deal. It's a general discussion you can't. Let's appreciate it and make good use of it. That's one. Two, we have to be law-abiding citizens. This is very important. Being law-abiding citizen doesn't mean that you lose your Islamic identity. But you have to uphold the rule of law. A Shi'i, Ithna Ashari, is non-negotiable for you to uphold the rule of law of your country. Even if it goes against your ideology. If you are faced with it, you have to uphold it. But that doesn't mean that you lose your Islamic identity. Because this freedom of practice that we have, you are free. So long as you don't harm others, you are free to practice the way you want to practice. So let's take this advantage to strengthen our faith and to strengthen our iman and our understanding of Islam. We have that freedom. Rule of law. Islam is against exploitation of the system. If you exploit the system, it is illegal not only in the nation's constitution, but in Islamic constitution. And you will be held accountable on the day of Qiyamah. Look at us. We are free to practice. You want to wake up the whole night, tahajjud, who stops you? You want to come mosque every day, who stops you? But yes, there are temptations out there. There are a lot of examinations out there. So therefore, I like the idea where we come together, we debate issues, we discuss it. And by so doing, we are able to get somewhere. There are so many good things that we can tap on to strengthen our iman. The challenges we face out there, let's take them positive to strengthen us. Those who are not faced with these challenges are not strong. They might not be strong like us. But when you come out of this challenge, you graduate successfully. So therefore, my sisters and my brothers, we have the opportunity to build our religion and to build ourselves. And lastly, I think what is important here, looking at these topics, is to engage non-Muslims and non-Shias. Go to them. One thing Muslims are good at, we don't go to them. We expect them always to come to us. Go to them. Visit them. Some of them, I like what the brother mentioned earlier on. Some of them, they don't know what Islam is all about. They only depend on what media says about Islam. And if you don't do your part, then you can't blame someone. Because our Imams mentioned, if people will get to know the beauty of our message, they would follow us. Some scholars said they will follow us, meaning it will change their perception. Who will expose them to the beauty of this message is I and you. Typical example. You go to bank, post office. There is a queue. A Muslim will want shortcut. Simple akhlaq. Simple akhlaq. Another example. NHS, you can get medicine. You want to take medicine, not all for your only use. You don't need it, but you take it because you want to help others. You cannot use the wrong way to help others, by the way. So, there are so many things we can discuss here. But yes, there are other parts of it which does not match or do not match with Islamic teachings. And that you are free. You are given that freedom by the Constitution. You want to go by it, you don't want to go by it. That's why for me, as a person, I'm a strong believer of strong integration. I know we are trying, we've done somehow well, but we are too much aloof. And I'm talking to the youth, our youth. You are British, some of you. That is your national identity. And you have to take maximum benefit of that. One way is to integrate properly. Others are running away from you as Muslims. Go to them. Prophet said, I'm a medical doctor who circulates with my medication. Prophet never said for people to go to him. He would go to people. So therefore, brothers and sisters, especially the young brothers and sisters, we need to integrate. We need to have programs with Christians, with Hindus, with Sikhs, where we discuss things that we share in common. And by so doing, we are able to inform people of what Islam is all about. And that will help reduce the levels of the Islamophobia that we see. But women, you can study to the highest level of Islam also. So one challenge we face today, our women don't want to study Islam. Few are studying. How many women Shia scholars do you have in the whole UK? What stops them? What stops them? To me, this is one challenge we need to look at. I think we need to encourage our women, even after their studies, to pursue somewhat Hausa studies. There are good women around that we have Molianis, but they are few. So I think we need more. Because today, my work, for instance, as a resident alim, most of the challenges I face are women-related issues. They come to me more than men. If I look at meetings I have in a week, maybe 10 meetings, 6, 7 of them are women-related issues. So we need women to be able to tackle this. So these are some of the challenges. And inshallah, having forums like this, we should be able to outline them. And we should be able to come up with some practical solutions that we can move forward. So in conclusion, my personal opinion is that There are ideologies that Islam and West share in common. And there are ideologies that we do not share in common. But that does not tell you to not to respect whatever is the constitution of the land. If you do not respect the constitution of the land and you are caught up, it's your own problem. It's not Islamic problem. It has nothing to do with Islam. This is where we leave it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Any question? One or two questions, then we are done, Ali. Any question? I think we said it all. Now it's time for pizza. But I know some have already eaten their pizza. Yeah, Ali, I'm done. You can conclude, Ali.
Well, thank you very much, Sheikh. Thank you for everyone for attending the discussion circle today. By the sounds of things, it looks like we'll be having a part 3. Sheikh, when you're next available.
Inshallah.
And once again, if anyone does have any feedback or anything they have enjoyed, please do let myself know, any member of the Behlul Society, or anyone else in the gents, even Sheikh himself. We'll be happy to take that feedback on board and try and improve these so we can have more sessions that are more helpful for everyone. Now, I know it is very late, but there is some food available. There is pizza in both the gents and the ladies, so with a loud salawat, can we all go and eat?